was wiping my nose because I could cry.
In a world where sound defines identity, one man dared to turn rhythm into philosophy and happiness into an art form. Pharrell Williams was never just a musician. He was a pulse, a heartbeat that echoed through hip-hop, pop, and even fashion. From the joyful whistle of Happy to the interstellar groove of Get Lucky, his music didn't just top charts, it changed the emotional frequency of an entire generation. But behind that infectious smile and effortless cool lay a man haunted by questions of purpose, creativity, and belonging. How does someone who gives the world happiness wrestle with his own? How does a quiet kid from Virginia Beach become the creative compass of 21st century culture? This is not just the story of fame and success. It's the journey of a dreamer who blurred every boundary between producer and performer, sound and soul, art and life. This is the story of Pharrell Williams, the visionary who turned every beat into a heartbeat. Before the fame, before the world called him the man who made happiness cool, there was a quiet boy in Virginia Beach, a place of calm suburbs, military discipline, and ocean winds. Pharrell Lancilo Williams was born on April 5, 1973, the eldest of three sons. His father, Pharoah, worked as a handyman for the U.S. Navy. His mother, Carolyn, was a teacher. They lived modestly, surrounded by order and routine, a world that valued precision more than imagination. But inside young Pharrell's mind, there was chaos, the beautiful kind. He would tap rhythms on school desks, hum tunes no one had ever heard, and lose himself in the sound of marching bands that paraded down the neighborhood streets. Music was his escape, his rebellion, and his secret universe. At school, he wasn't the loudest or the most confident. He was the kid who stared out the window, daydreaming about patterns, colors, and sounds. It was there he met Chad Hugo, another quiet, eccentric boy obsessed with melody. The two connected instantly, speaking a language made not of words, but beats. Together, they built a small world of sound from cheap keyboards and borrowed equipment, turning bedrooms into makeshift studios. They called themselves the Neptunes, inspired by outer space, because even then, Pharrell believed his music didn't belong on Earth. What began as curiosity soon became destiny. In those early days, surrounded by suburban silence and teenage uncertainty, Pharrell found the rhythm that would one day move the world. By the time Pharrell reached high school, his quiet imagination had evolved into rhythm, sharp, precise, and magnetic. Alongside Chad Hugo, he began crafting beats after class, looping drum patterns on battered samplers, layering melodies that felt alien and soulful at the same time. In 1990, fate intervened at a school talent show. Pharrell performed an original rap, and in the audience sat Teddy Riley, the legendary R&B producer who had just built his studio in Virginia Beach. Riley saw something rare, a spark too unconventional to ignore. Within months, Pharrell and Chad were interning at his studio, absorbing every note, every nuance of professional production. They learned the rules of the industry, only to later break them all. Their partnership as the Neptunes began shaping its identity. Strange, syncopated, irresistible. Their first major project came in the late 90s when they produced Super Thug for NORE, a track that exploded onto radio. Its futuristic rhythm and minimalist sound flipped hip-hop on its head. Suddenly everyone was asking, "Who are the Neptunes?" More hits followed. Jay-Z's "I Just Wanna Love You, Give It To Me." Britney Spears' "I'm a Slave For You," each stamped with their unmistakable sonic signature. Dry drums, punchy synths, and a hypnotic groove that sounded like the future. Pharrell had found his first real stage, not as a singer or performer, but as the invisible architect behind the hits that defined a new millennium. But even as success began to flicker, Pharrell remained searching. In his mind, the question lingered. If I can create hits for others, when will I find my own voice? By the early 2000s, Pharrell Williams was no longer just a name buried in production credits. He was the sound of a new era. Alongside Chad Hugo, the Neptunes became an unstoppable force, redefining pop, R&B, and hip-hop with every beat they touched. Their sound was clean yet chaotic, robotic yet emotional, a paradox that captivated artists across every genre. In a single year, they produced for Justin Timberlake, Usher, Beyoncé, Jay-Z, and Snoop Dogg. The radio belonged to them. Their fingerprints were everywhere. Rolling Stone would later call them the architects of modern pop. But Pharrell wasn't content staying in the shadows. In 2003, he stepped to the microphone himself with Frontin, a smooth, confident track that fused R&B sensuality with futuristic funk. It was his declaration of independence. The song became an instant hit, proving that the producer could also be the performer. Then came the collaborations that would define a generation. The ethereal groove of Get Lucky with Daft Punk, the infectious optimism of Happy, and his sleek partnership with Snoop Dogg on Drop It Like It's Hot. Pharrell wasn't chasing trends, he was creating them. Fashion followed. He co-founded Billionaire Boys Club and Ice Cream, merging streetwear with high art. His signature look, oversized hats, diamond chains, and effortless charisma, made him as recognizable as his beats. But beneath the swagger and smiles, there was something deeper. A vision. Pharrell wasn't simply trying to be famous. He was trying to build a universe of creativity, where sound, color, and emotion could coexist. By the time Happy took over the world in 2013, turning stadiums, schools, and even city streets into dance floors, Pharrell had transcended music. He had become a cultural frequency, a symbol of pure creative joy. The boy from Virginia Beach had done the impossible. He didn't just rise to fame. He redefined what fame could sound like. At the peak of his success, Pharrell Williams seemed untouchable, a symbol of positivity, creativity, and effortless cool. But fame, as it often does, carries a shadow. And in 2015, that shadow arrived with a lawsuit. The hit song Blurred Lines, which Pharrell co-wrote and produced for Robin Thicke, was accused of copying Marvin Gaye's 1977 classic, Got to Give It Up. What began as an artistic debate quickly spiraled into a cultural firestorm. Critics labeled it theft. Others called it inspiration gone too far. When the court ruled against Pharrell and Robin Thicke, ordering millions in damages, it wasn't just a financial blow. It was a public questioning of his integrity, his genius, his soul. Pharrell later admitted that the verdict crushed him. He had always believed creativity was about channeling, not copying, connecting with the unseen pulse of the universe and translating it into sound. But now, he was painted as the villain in a story about stolen art. As the headlines grew louder, Pharrell grew quieter. He retreated from the spotlight, reflecting on how fame had distorted the very joy that once fueled his art. He questioned the industry, the media, and even himself. When the world decides you're wrong, how do you find your rhythm again? The smile that once defined him began to fade. For the first time in his life, the man who wrote Happy could no longer feel it. But within that silence, something was shifting. Pharrell was breaking. And through that break, something entirely new was about to be born. When the noise of fame faded, Pharrell Williams rediscovered something far more powerful: silence. It was in that quiet that he began to rebuild, not his image, but his soul. Instead of chasing another chart topper, he turned inward. He became a mentor on The Voice, guiding young artists who reminded him of his own teenage self, uncertain, raw, yet endlessly creative. Pharrell's gentle words and empathy became a beacon for a new generation, proof that genius could also be kind. He began to shift from performer to philosopher, from artist to architect of culture. Music remained his foundation, but his imagination expanded into fashion, design, and social impact. Collaborating with Chanel, Adidas, and Human Made, Pharrell used style as a new form of storytelling, where color, texture, and emotion replaced melody. Then came the defining moment. 2023. Louis Vuitton announced Pharrell Williams as its men's creative director, succeeding the late Virgil Abloh. It wasn't just a fashion headline, it was history. The kid from Virginia Beach, who once tapped beats on school desks, was now shaping one of the most prestigious brands on earth. But unlike before, this chapter wasn't about proving himself. It was about purpose. Pharrell used his platform to promote diversity, sustainability, and joy. The same joy he once thought he'd lost. In interviews, he spoke not of success, but of gratitude. When you finally realize it's not about being the best, it's about being useful, that's when peace begins. Through reinvention, Pharrell didn't just save his career. He redefined what success could mean, turning every scar into a lesson, and every silence into a song. Few artists have left fingerprints as wide and lasting as Pharrell Williams. Across 3 decades, his sound reshaped entire genres, from the stripped-down funk of the Neptunes to the kaleidoscopic pop of Happy. He blurred the lines between hip-hop, R&B, and electronic music, proving that emotion was the most powerful instrument of all. In studios across the world, producers still study the Neptune sound. That sparse drum beat, that offbeat rhythm, that daring simplicity that somehow made millions move. Pharrell didn't just produce hits. He rewired how music could feel. But his influence goes far beyond sound. In fashion, he shattered barriers, blending streetwear with haute couture, redefining what it means to be stylish, bold, and unapologetically individual. His partnership with Louis Vuitton and the creation of Billionaire Boys Club inspired a generation to treat fashion not as luxury, but as language. To young creatives, Pharrell became more than an icon. He was a blueprint, proof that curiosity could be a career, and kindness could be cool. Artists like Tyler, The Creator, Billie Eilish, Frank Ocean, and Kendrick Lamar all cite him as a guiding light. The man who made weird beautiful and humble powerful. And through it all, Pharrell never claimed the title of legend. He prefers something simpler, a student of the universe. Because for Pharrell Williams, legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you inspire others to begin. Fame gave Pharrell Williams the world, but fatherhood gave him perspective. Away from the spotlight, he lives a quieter rhythm, surrounded by his wife, Helen Lasichan, and their children. Their home is filled not with awards or platinum plaques, but with laughter, music, and small reminders of humility. In interviews, Pharrell often speaks about gratitude as a form of prayer, not tied to religion, but to awareness. When you stop chasing cool, he says, you start finding warmth. He learned that true happiness isn't a song, or a headline, or even a legacy. It's presence. It's the ability to stand still and say, I'm thankful for right now. Beyond music, Pharrell has dedicated himself to education and empowerment. He founded Yellow, a nonprofit organization that reimagines the future of learning by inspiring creativity in children, especially in underserved communities. To him, giving back isn't charity. It's evolution. The next genius, he once said, is probably sitting in a classroom somewhere, dreaming louder than I ever did. At this stage of his life, Pharrell no longer measures success by hits or headlines. He measures it by impact. The joy he creates, the kindness he cultivates, the bridges he builds between people and possibility. And perhaps that's the final transformation of the boy from Virginia Beach. He no longer chases happiness. He embodies it. From a small classroom in Virginia Beach to the grand runways of Paris, Pharrell Williams has walked a path few could imagine. A journey guided not by fame, but by faith in creativity itself. He turned beats into bridges, style into statement, and joy into revolution. Every rhythm he touched carried a deeper truth, that happiness isn't a destination, but a choice, a rhythm we all hold within. Pharrell's story reminds us that genius isn't about being louder, faster, or richer. It's about seeing color where others see gray, hearing music in silence, and believing that art can still change the world. His smile, once misunderstood as simplicity, has become a symbol of resilience. Because behind it stands a man who's fallen, risen, and learned that the truest sound of success is peace. The world doesn't need more stars, Pharrell once said softly. It needs more light. And through his vision, his music, and his heart, he's given us exactly that. This is Pharrell Williams, the man who turned sound into soul and happiness into art.